Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. Robust coal prices are expected globally in 2010, while the downward trend in South African coal exports is expected to be reversed. Mining Weekly editor Martin Creamer is in the studio to tell us more. Welcome to Second Take.
Thanks, Shannon.
Coal demand in Asia outstripped supply in 2009. Where do countries like China and India expect to find coal in 2010?
Well, it was interesting, this week belonged to coal because the McCloskey Coal Export Conference came to Cape Town and everybody had their say. And Gerald McCloskey was particularly bullish about coal, and he mentioned several times, where is the world going to get its coal? And so that is an issue because the demand building up in India particularly is very, very strong, and there were a lot of Indians at the conference. Now, the telltale signs about Indian demand are the fact that they're siting many of their power stations. Many of their new coal-fired power stations are sited on the coast. That means one thing, they're going to import coal. If they sited them on a coal field, that would be a different story, but they're siting them close to port terminals, which indicates that they're going to import a lot of coal. And they were asking a lot of questions of South Africans, and it looks like they'll be covering their backs in terms of their coal supply from South Africa and obviously other places as well. And China is also, seen to be a country that will be importing more coal. So the seaborne traded coal market looks very buoyant.
Now, closer to home, coal miner Anglo Coal wants to grow its thermal coal business. Can you tell us more?
There's been such a communication delay. We've had this problem with Eskom, and instead of the talks beginning on coal mining, 10 years ago, as they should have, they haven't. So there's been this lag. And that is a feature of coal in South Africa at the moment. It's playing catch up. Although, Eskom has moderated its demand for coal for this year. When you look long term, they're saying, look, build some mines, invest in some mines, and people are having to play catch up. So again, our big major Anglo Coal is saying, look, the horizon there indicates that we should be growing our business, and that's what we want to do. But of course, one would have thought that this would have happened a long time ago.
Transnet also wants to increase their coal line rail capacity. What initiatives are they looking at to make that a reality?
Yeah, Transnet came in for a lashing at the conference, as they did last year. Some of the Indians scratched their head and said, railway lines, is this rocket science? What's the holdup? You've got a port that is now, in 2 months, it'll have a capacity to export 91 million tons of coal. The conference demanded from Transnet, look, how much can you export? What will be the minimum that you can carry this year? And they came up with about 65 million tons. But obviously they're hoping for more than that, and they don't want to overstate their hand. But it just shows you how far the rail has lagged behind the port. Now, the port is a private sector-owned port. The rail is a state-owned rail. And therein, you have a tail. One would imagine that the state would be ahead of the game because there's so many big advantages, for coal to be exported. I mean, the losses that we've had because we haven't had that rail. And we're still debating, getting to 81 million tons. At this point in time, of course, Transnet may have a case because they're saying, well, where is the coal to put on the line? So this communication gap going back 10 years is so sad. And the country is suffering from it. We would be able to earn a lot more in foreign exchange. During the last boom, we lost out on foreign exchange, and we're still having this stop-start sort of approach to rail. But in the meantime, it looks like they are getting their act together. Transnet Freight Rail, they're also talking about greater efficiencies and hundreds of new wagons that they're going to get and new locos. So perhaps, the future looks good, but let's hope, we're not ready when the market turns down.
And then, of course, the question arises about climate change. With all this demand for coal, what happens with climate change?
Yeah, climate change is a huge issue, and the CO2 baggage. Coal comes with carbon dioxide emission baggage, and that has to be dealt with, and the coal companies know that. But of course, the people who mine the coal don't burn the coal. So they're not the ones that put the emissions into there. It's the power stations that put these emissions into there. But even so, coal companies, coal miners know that if they don't spend a lot more money on getting solutions, even though they are not directly involved, it's going to hit their market very, very bad in the longer term. In the short term, in the medium term, they're well away. But they've got to, look to a longer term, and that's why the point was made that they need to bring in the scientists, the academics, the coal companies, everybody involved, the power stations. Let's get a solution with regard to carbon capture and storage or any other aspect that will make sure that coal cleans up its act, because breathing down its neck is another, energy mineral, uranium.
Yes.
And people are saying, but why don't we have more nuclear power stations? And there are issues with the initial capital cost there, which is pretty high, but even more so, the operating costs of coal-fired power stations are much higher than nuclear power stations. So it costs a lot to build the nuclear power station. Mind you, it also costs a lot to build coal power stations, but then the ongoing operational cost when it comes to nuclear is lower. So people refer to that. If you're looking longer term, nuclear is starting to breathe down the neck of coal. And also we've got uranium here in South Africa, and it has been declared a strategic mineral. So you can see that the government is also thinking we're going to go bigger on nuclear.
Thank you so much. We'll keep an eye out on that.
Great pleasure,
Thanks,
Shannon.
Martin. That's the show for today. Join us again next time for more news and insights into what's happening in the mining world.